President Trump. They were on the 5th hole. They were about to go up to putt. They heard pop, 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 pop. The gun has been found. They identified it as an AK-47.
And I'm going to speak very frankly here, because this is the direct result of years of the progressive left Democrats calling President Trump Hitler, saying that he's evil, that he's a racist, that he needs to be eradicated, that he's a scourge. And this becomes fuel. This becomes motivation for people who are mentally defective. They take this as their battle cry. And they say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to solve the world's problems. Here is this blight, this cancer on society. I'm going to take something, a firearm, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to solve this problem. And within hours of the attempted assassination of President Trump in Butler Township, Pennsylvania, you've got Democrats that are doubling down on the rhetoric. This rhetoric is directly responsible for this type of chaos. Directly responsible.
I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Too many see the protests as the problem. Please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Go to the Hill today. Get up in the face of some Congress people.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
Running away from Donald Trump, I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
When they go low, we kick.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump. And that's
an actor dressed to look just like President Donald Trump as he's assassinated on stage. Look as his character is stabbed to death. And there's no mistaking the Trump connection.
And it appears this was once again an attempted assassination. As Manuel Bojorquez reports, police say a suspect was arrested and identified as Wesley Routh.
Former President Donald Trump is safe and unharmed.
The Secret Service spotted a man with a rifle along the fence at Trump International Golf Club just after 1:30 this afternoon. The suspect was armed with an AK-47 style rifle and a scope, about 300 to 500 yards away from the former president. Investigators say he also had a GoPro camera and backpacks containing ceramic tile. Secret Service agents fired at least 4 shots at the suspect, but it's unclear whether that person fired back. A witness saw a man running out of the bushes and jump into a black SUV. That witness took a photo of the suspect's car and license plate. About 30 minutes north of the golf club, police stopped an SUV with the same license plate number. Police took the witness up there to confirm they had the right person.
The Secret Service did exactly what they should have done.
Police say the suspect is in custody tonight as they work to find a motive.
And what's really disturbing is that the social media posts by this fellow who has given money to Democrat causes in recent years sound very much like what you're hearing from Democrat politicians, that Trump is a threat to democracy. So I don't think this is happening in a void. I think this is absolutely purposeful, that Democrats have made this man public enemy number one, and there is really a target on his back, Maria.
Yeah, this is spot on, Liz. And in fact, this came up at the debate last week. President Trump pointed out all of this negative rhetoric and said this is putting his life in danger. Watch this.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy.
Darren and Steve, weigh in here about this rhetoric. To what extent do you see this rhetoric on the left triggering people like these shooters?
This is the time to dial down the rhetoric. I mean, we are a great nation. We're the greatest nation on the face of this earth. And as President Trump mentioned, this is not a banana republic. We shouldn't experience assassination attempts on our leaders or our potential leaders. This is not Venezuela. We are much better than that. And it just pains me to see that the narrative continues and there's been no correction in sight from the perspective of the Secret Service or even the radical statements that are made on the opposition. And now is the time to put this behind us and focus on this election and not have interference to ensure that we have the appropriate candidate that's elected as the president of the United States.
Steve Rogers, what about that? The Federalist writes this morning, Democrats did the opposite of, quote, lower the temperature between Trump assassination attempts. The Federalist writes, when an assassin first attempted to take Trump's life at the Butler, Pennsylvania rally in July, Democrats and the media everywhere overlooked their roles in stoking the flames of hate.
And here he is. This is the suspect, Ryan Wesley Routh, who's in his late 50s. He spent time as a volunteer in Ukraine after the Russian invasion. And our Holly Williams was in touch with him when he was overseas, and she joins us now. Holly, good morning. What else can you tell us about this man?
Hey there, Nate. Look, when I woke up this morning in London to the news that Ryan Routh was the suspect in an alleged assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, I was stunned to recognize the name because I had been in touch with Ryan Routh for over a year in the early stages of the war in Ukraine. Like thousands of other international volunteers, he apparently went to Ukraine to help. I do not believe he was fighting himself, but he had put signs up in Kyiv, Ukraine's capital, offering to help other foreigners find places in Ukrainian battalions. And that's how I initially came across him. I spoke with him, I think, once on the phone and texted frequently, and he put me in touch with several foreign fighters. Now, he seemed very genuine and passionate about supporting Ukraine. He mentioned plans to bring in thousands of Afghan and Syrian fighters, which I took, frankly, with a grain of salt. In an interview with the news website Semaphore, he claimed he'd been unable to get visas for those Afghan fighters, but we don't know if he was actually in touch with any Ukrainian officials at all. Now, I've met American volunteers everywhere from Syria to Ukraine. Some are experienced soldiers and very clear about the dangers they're facing. Others seem less well informed and their motivations can be quite confused. To be honest, Ryan Routh did at times seem fairly naive. At one point, he sent me an audio track of a song he'd apparently recorded about the carnage caused by the war in Ukraine. In November of last year, he told me he was back in the US, in Hawaii, and that was the last time I heard from him.
Here's what we know about him. He is originally from North Carolina. He moved to Hawaii in 2017. He's been arrested in the past for drug possession, driving without a license, expired inspection, and operating a car without insurance. In 2002, he barricaded himself inside his roofing company's office during a 3-hour standoff with police following a traffic stop.
And we find out what was his motive, who is he, and why he allegedly was stalking former President Trump to shoot him.
Thanks for having me. With regard to motive, I think it goes back to, what we used to call the Billy Bad Boy motive, which is he just wants to be seen as a big tough guy when in fact he knows he's not. The indications to me with regard to the ceramic ballistic plates within 2 backpacks tell me that he was going to put one on the front and one on the back, and that was going to be his way to escape from that location after he were to shoot.
After the first failed attempt in August, his threat level necessarily skyrockets. Clearly, this is an individual who is going to be targeted for violence. It's necessary to reassess the types of protective services that we're providing him and be able to enhance and bolster those. It doesn't seem like that's being done. And certainly, I think that's a logical argument, given the fact that here we are several weeks later and attempt number 2. Yeah. And again, thank God. And again, listen, it doesn't matter what side of the political aisle that somebody happens to be on. We don't want to see political opponents shedding blood from the other party. Nah. But when the rhetoric, and I have to go back to the rhetoric that is being perpetrated on a daily basis by multiple players within the Democrat Party of this country, when they continue to propagate the rhetoric that they do, this becomes more likely, and now at this point, an inevitability. Yeah.